The evening was suffocating, the air heavy with the scent of impending rain. I, Isabella, 38, a widow for what felt like an eternity, sharp-tongued yet soft-curved, reclined in the shadows of our dim living room, my silk robe shimmering in the soft glow of a solitary lamp. The heat enveloped me, a suffocating shroud that clung to my skin, relentless and heavy, transforming even the slightest motion into a daunting task. The windows stood ajar, yet not a whisper of wind stirred to break the oppressive stillness within. The air was thick with the faint hum of cicadas, punctuated by the distant, ominous rumble of thunder, setting the stage for an unfolding tale. The minutes stretched endlessly, each tick of the clock echoing in the silence, as I sat there, lost in a haze that felt like it had consumed hours. My thoughts meandered through a labyrinth of the ordinary and the sorrowful, lost in a haze that had become all too familiar lately. 3 years had slipped by since my husband's passing, and though the jagged edges of grief had softened, a persistent ache lingered, a silent shadow that trailed me in every moment. Tonight, the ache pulsed with a different intensity, restless and almost sentient, as if the storm raging outside had awakened something profound within me. I shifted on the couch, the silk of my robe gliding against my skin, and released a slow, deliberate breath. The dim glow of the lamp stretched shadows across the room, transforming the walls into a canvas of muted gold. The glow enveloped me like a whispered secret, warm and inviting. My fingers danced along the hem of my robe, caressing the delicate fabric as if it held the promise of untold stories waiting to unfold. The soft, rhythmic trickle of water from the bathroom broke the silence, yanking me from the depths of my thoughts. A heartbeat later, Jameson emerged into the living room, steam still clinging to him, a towel draped provocatively low on his hips. At 22, he was a whirlwind of restless energy, his dark, tousled hair framing a face that hinted at both youth and burgeoning maturity. His lean frame bore the last vestiges of adolescence, yet it was also marked by the early signs of a more defined, confident presence waiting to emerge. The water shimmered on his chest, reflecting the soft glow of the lamplight, and in that fleeting moment, I was captivated by the striking resemblance he bore to his father. Broad shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of the world, moving with an effortless grace that captivated all who watched, my eyes darted away in an instant, drawn instead to the window where the world outside beckoned with untold stories. Jameson stood before me, a living echo of a past entwined with his father's shadow, a past that now seemed like a fading whisper in the corridors of my memory. We inhabited the same house, a fragile truce between us, our exchanges sharp and utilitarian, each word a careful step on thin ice. He was young, caught in the whirlwind of self-discovery, while I stood as a widow, grappling with a reality that grew more alien with each passing day. Without a hint of forewarning, the power vanished, plunging the room into an abyss as the lamp's warm glow was extinguished, leaving only shadows in its wake. A distant rumble of thunder reverberated through the house, the ominous herald of the impending storm. I sprang to my feet, but the edge of the ottoman betrayed me, sending me lurching forward. My hands shot out, desperate for something to grasp as the world tilted around me. My fingers traced the contours of Jameson's bare shoulders, his skin radiating warmth and moisture beneath my touch. He caught me with an instinctive grip, his hands firm on my arms as I regained my balance. For an instant we stood motionless, the atmosphere around us crackling with an unspoken tension that neither of us could define. In that fleeting moment, the towel betrayed him, slipping away like a whisper in the wind. My fingers grazed something solid and unyielding beneath his waist, a surge of electricity coursing through me at the touch. I flinched, my breath hitching in my throat, a flush of heat igniting my cheeks, a sensation that had little to do with the oppressive atmosphere surrounding me. Apologies. Jameson's voice trembled, thick with humiliation, as he awkwardly struggled to reposition the towel. In the dim glow of the moonlight that seeped through the windows, our eyes locked, igniting a spark that felt electric in the stillness of the night. An unspoken connection hung in the air, stretching into an uncomfortable silence, revealing more than words ever could. I recoiled, my heart racing wildly. The echo of that brief contact etched deeply in my memory. The remainder of the evening unfolded in a haze, each moment slipping away like sand through fingers. Jameson slipped away to his room, his voice barely a whisper as he grumbled about searching for a flashlight. I remained in the living room, my mind a whirlwind of racing thoughts. The storm loomed ominously outside, its fury yet to unleash, but within me a tempest was already brewing, unraveling the very fabric of my being. Later, in the seclusion of my room, an irresistible urge consumed me. My fingers glided beneath the silk of my robe, exploring the contours of my hip, my stomach, my thighs. My breath hitched in my throat. As the vision of Jameson loomed in my mind, his powerful frame, glistening skin, and imposing presence consumed me. My touch became more daring, more demanding, until a surge of release crashed over me like a tidal wave, leaving me gasping and disoriented in the shadows. The unsettling feeling clung to her, a persistent throb that transcended mere sorrow. The storm loomed on the horizon, but it was more than just the rumble of thunder that sent shivers down my spine. It was an entity unlike any other, a force teetering on the edge of peril, and deep down, I questioned whether I had the strength or the desire to bring it to a halt. Not long after, still enveloped in that restless darkness, I stood at the kitchen counter, a loose sundress clinging to my skin as I desperately fanned myself against the oppressive heat. The air hung heavy, a palpable tension filling the space, as the storm loomed just beyond the walls, casting the house into a shadow of restless expectation. My thoughts drifted, ensnared by the haunting memory of that brief encounter in the living room, the unintentional glide of my fingers against Jameson's. It was a moment that stirred a tempest within me, leaving me more disquieted than I was willing to confess. I pressed my back against the counter, the chill of the marble offering no relief from the fiery tension coursing through me. The faint hum of the refrigerator filled the room, a steady, almost hypnotic rhythm that only amplified the disorder swirling in my mind. The sensation of his skin lingered on my fingertips, a haunting reminder of the moment his towel had betrayed him and the electric connection of our gazes under the silvery glow of the moon. The knowledge of its wrongness weighed heavily on me, yet the memory clung on, relentless and unyielding, a splinter embedded deep within my mind that I couldn't shake off. The gentle whisper of bare feet gliding across the cool tiled floor jolted me from my reverie. I tilted my head ever so slightly, catching a glimpse of Jameson as he sauntered into the kitchen, shirtless, with nothing but a pair of loose shorts clinging low on his hips. My breath hitched for an instant, but I swiftly averted my gaze, feigning interest in the glass of water cradled in my hand. As he swung open the fridge door, a rush of cool light poured forth, illuminating the space and throwing shadows that danced across his chest. He seized a bottle of water, his motion smooth and deliberate, and I couldn't help but observe him from the periphery of my vision. His movements were magnetic, exuding a confidence that bordered on recklessness, drawing every eye in the room and holding them captive. As he turned, our eyes locked, his gaze sweeping over me with a smoldering intensity that ignited the air around us, making the heat in the room surge to an almost unbearable level. I swallowed hard, my fingers gripping the glass tightly as I fought to dismiss the overwhelming aura of his presence that enveloped the room. "Rest eludes you?" he inquired, his voice a husky whisper, thick with the remnants of slumber. I shook my head, a smile struggling to break free. The heat was unbearable. I decided to quench my thirst with a refreshing glass of water. He nodded, tilting the bottle back, his throat constricting as he gulped down the liquid, each swallow a testament to his thirst. My gaze followed the elegant line of his collarbone, captivated by the rhythmic movement of his Bernardo's apple. Before I hastily averted my eyes, the silence loomed between us, thick and electric, until the weight of the unasked question became unbearable, compelling me to break the stillness that enveloped us. "You're, quite impressive down there," I stammered, heat flooding my cheeks the instant the words slipped out. Jameson halted, the bottle suspended in midair, his eyes growing wide with shock. For a fleeting instant, I expected him to chuckle or deflect with a quip, but instead, he placed the bottle down with deliberate care and leaned against the counter, his eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "Do you feel at ease with it?" I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to a whisper laced with uncertainty. "Do girls dare to dream?" "It required a certain acclimatization," he confessed, adjusting his position ever so slightly. "Girls often claim it's overwhelming." The air around us thickened, heavy with unspoken words, while the refrigerator's low hum filled the silence, creating an almost palpable tension in the room. My fingers twitched at my sides, the memory of that fleeting touch surging back with vivid intensity. As he handed me the bottle, his fingers grazed against mine, igniting a surge of electricity that sent my heart racing wildly. I lifted the glass to my lips, my hand trembling as I took a sip. The cool water barely touched the fire that raged beneath my skin, leaving me craving something more. We lingered in that charged silence, the air thick with unspoken words, each breath tightening the coil of tension between us. Then, with a heavy heart, Jameson turned and stepped into the shadows of the hallway, his figure fading into the enveloping darkness. I lingered at the counter, my heart pounding, my body caught in a fierce battle with an insatiable curiosity that refused to let go. The storm outside loomed ominously, its fury yet to unleash, but within me, disorder was already taking hold, twisting and turning in a relentless dance of turmoil. The blackout lingered into its second evening, the house engulfed by a darkness so profound it seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The The sweltering heat enveloped everything, suffocating each breath as if the very world was poised in anticipation, holding its breath for a tempest that would never arrive. The day had dragged on, a restless haze enveloping me, my mind spiraling back to the haunting echoes of the previous night. Jameson's voice, low and rough, lingered in my ears as he confessed, "Girls usually say it's a lot." The memory lingered like a shadow, a perilous blend of guilt and curiosity that clung to me, refusing to let go no matter how fiercely I fought against it. As I drifted through the shadowy corridors of the house, the dim glow of a solitary lantern flickered, casting eerie shapes that danced along the walls, my only companion in the encroaching darkness. The air hung heavy with the scent of rain, a thick expectant stillness enveloping the world as if nature itself held its breath in anticipation. Bernardo, the downpour danced just beyond reach, a tantalizing promise shimmering on the horizon, teasing the senses with its impending arrival. As I approached the garage, my footsteps echoed softly in the shadows, the faint glow of a lantern casting flickering shapes across the cluttered workbench. Jameson hovered over the ancient radio, his fingers dancing deftly among the tangled wires, a master of his craft, as he breathed life into the forgotten device. The air hung heavy with an oily thickness, nearly suffocating, while the soft, persistent hum of the lantern intensified the room's electric tension. I pressed my back against the workbench, the chill of the metal seeping into my skin, while my shorts inched up as I crossed my legs, a subtle discomfort mingling with the tension in the air. My gaze clung to him, captivated by the way his muscles rippled beneath his skin, the way his dark hair tumbled into his eyes as he toiled. He possessed an allure that was both primal and wild, a magnetic force that pulled me closer, even as the voice in my mind shouted warnings, urging me to turn back. As I started, my voice was gentle yet tinged with a playful challenge. "What about your size?" My curiosity lingers, a burning question that refuses to fade. "What does it truly feel like?" Jameson froze, his hands pausing on the radio as he slowly turned to face me, a tension crackling in the air between us. His eyes locked onto mine, deep and inscrutable, and in that fleeting moment, I felt the weight of his gaze, as if he might silence me, might command me to cease. "Bernardo," he merely gazed at me, his breath quickening, his chest rising and falling in a cadence that mirrored my own. The air around us buzzed with an undeniable tension, a charged energy that sent shivers down my spine and quickened the beat of my heart. I edged forward, each step measured and intentional, my eyes locked onto his with unwavering intensity. "It's dark," I added, my voice a mere breath, daring to pierce the silence. "The power has gone out, allow me to truly experience it. Darkness envelopes me, leaving me blind to the world around." He paused, his jaw clenched, and for a fleeting moment I feared he might refuse. "Bernardo," in a moment that seemed to stretch time itself, he gave a barely noticeable nod. My pulse raced, each beat echoing in my ears as I drew closer, the tension thickening in the air between us. My hand quivered with anticipation as I extended it, my fingers grazing the fabric, igniting a rush of emotions within me. He was solid as stone, his size undeniable even through the fabric, and a surge of electricity coursed through me at the touch. With deliberate slowness, I navigated the surface, my fingers gliding over the fabric, each touch a whisper of discovery. He towered over me, radiating a warmth that seized my breath, leaving me momentarily speechless. My touch became more daring, my palm pressing firmly against him, and I sensed the tension in his body, the way his breath caught in his throat in reaction. Jameson's hands clutched the edge of the workbench, knuckles pale and tense. As I delved deeper, my fingers wrapping around him with a sense of urgency. His breath came in sharp gasps, each rise and fall of his chest echoing the frantic beat of my own heart. "Isabella," he whispered, his voice laced with urgency. A warning, a plea, but I pressed on, undeterred. My hand seemed to possess a will of its own, fingers curling with an intensity as I caressed. He let out a deep, primal groan, a sound that resonated from the depths of his being. And then, with a sudden, sharp intake of breath, he reached his climax. We stood frozen, a palpable tension enveloping us, the air thick with disbelief. The only sounds that pierced the stillness were the soft hum of the lantern and the uneven rhythm of our breaths, each gasp echoing the weight of the moment. My heart raced wildly, each beat echoing the gravity of my actions, the desires that had driven me, enveloping me in a suffocating shroud. Jameson's gaze locked onto mine, a storm of shadows swirling within, and for a heartbeat, the world around us fell away, leaving only the weight of the silence between us. The air around us crackled with an electric intensity, each moment stretching the tension like a taut wire, ready to snap at any moment. I took a step back, my hand quivering as I withdrew it, and Jameson let out a sharp breath, his shoulders sagging as he leaned against the workbench. The air was thick with unspoken words, a silence that loomed between us, dense and unyielding. The lantern's glow flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the room. I turned away, my mind a tempest of guilt and longing, each thought crashing against the other like waves in a storm. The storm outside loomed ominously, its fury just waiting to be unleashed, yet within me a profound fracture had already taken hold. The next evening, the storm-laden sky loomed ominously, its weight palpable in the air, thick with the tantalizing scent of rain that lingered, teasing but never arriving. The blackout stretched on, enveloping the house in a darkness that felt almost oppressive. Bernardo, the back porch beckoned like a fragile sanctuary where the soft hum of crickets provided a soothing counterpoint to the electric tension crackling between Jameson and me. We perched on the weathered wooden steps, a bottle of warm wine resting between us, its meager contents failing to quell the palpable electricity that surged in the air. The wine clung to my tongue with a bitter edge, its warmth unable to quell the restless energy that wound itself tighter with each fleeting second. My mind spiraled back to the garage, to the way Jameson had stiffened under my fingers, the way he breathed my name like a desperate prayer. The memory clung to me like a shadow, a perilous blend of guilt and longing that refused to release its grip. Jameson shifted beside me, his knee grazing mine, and the moment sparked a jolt of electricity that coursed through my veins. His closeness was a heady elixir, saturating the air around us, blurring the lines of thought and reason. My breath caught in my throat, yet I remained rooted, the heat of his skin merging with my own. He turned to me, his dark eyes probing my face, and for a heartbeat, silence enveloped us both. The silence hung thick in the air, laden with unvoiced tension until he shattered it with his words. "Touch me again," he murmured, his voice low and rough, each word igniting a shiver that danced down my spine. Kindly, my heart raced wildly, each beat echoing in my ears while my fingers quivered with anticipation as I extended my hand. For a heartbeat, I paused, the gravity of my impending choice pressing down on me, but then my fingers glided over the fabric, following its contours with a sense of purpose. He was poised, the heat unmistakable, and I sensed him tighten under my fingertips. "Isabella," he whispered, his voice a desperate plea, a haunting warning, yet I pressed on, undeterred. My hand seemed to possess a will of its own, fingers wrapping around him as he let out a soft groan. His breath catching in his throat, his hand reached for me, the initial touch hesitant, yet soon he became more daring, his fingers dancing across my skin. His touch began with a tentative brush, a whisper of contact that felt like a careful exploration of uncharted territory, but soon it transformed, gaining strength and urgency as if the very air around them crackled with unspoken desire. His fingers danced across my skin, igniting a fire within me that left my breath suspended, each touch sparking a thrilling surge of electricity coursing through my veins. "Your trouble," I breathed, my voice trembling with desire, the words almost lost in the symphony of cricket's song. He flashed a grin, his eyes swirling with a deep hunger that mirrored my own. "Only if you let me," he murmured, his voice a gravelly whisper that sent shivers down her spine. His hand ascended, fingers gliding over the delicate skin, and I sensed the final strain unraveling, the wine and shadows drawing us into a reckless abyss, a point of no return. Then, without warning, his free hand found its way to the back of my neck, his grip steady yet gentle. With a firm yet tender touch, he led my head downward, each movement purposeful and charged with intent. My breath hitched, my heart raced wildly in my chest as the truth of his intentions dawned on me. "Jameson," I breathed the name, my voice a fragile whisper, the syllables feeling strange and heavy on my tongue, as if I had unwittingly revealed a secret I wasn't ready to share. He remained silent, yet his grip on my neck tightened just enough to convey a message, his touch a blend of authority and desperation. My lips parted without thought, a warm breath escaping, brushing against him. The storm outside loomed ominously, its fury yet to be unleashed, but within me a tempest was already brewing, the tension winding tighter with each fleeting second, the final strands of control unraveled, the wine and shadows luring us into a reckless abyss. A point of no return that I could not escape. Later, as we huddled in the shadows, the storm loomed ominously on the horizon, its presence a palpable force. I could feel its weight bearing down on me, the gravity of our actions, or the brink of them, enveloping me like a suffocating shroud. The boundary that once defined us had been shattered, leaving me uncertain if there was any path to return. The storm raged beyond, yet the true tempest had already ignited within me, within us, there was no way out. The evening had surrendered to a heavy, sultry night, the air thick with humidity that clung to your skin, making each breath a laborious endeavor. The storm hung ominously on the horizon, its distant rumbles of thunder a haunting promise, yet it lingered, withholding its fury. The house loomed in shadows, its silence broken only by the soft flicker of a lantern casting an eerie glow in the corner of the upstairs hall. I pressed my back against the wall, the fabric of my tank top clinging uncomfortably as a storm of thoughts raged within me. He consumed my thoughts, an unrelenting presence in the depths of my mind. Jameson stood at the edge of the world, the wind howling around him, carrying whispers of secrets yet to be uncovered. His heart raced, each beat echoing the thrill of the unknown that lay ahead. My stepson, a figure woven into the fabric of my life, carries with him the weight of unspoken stories and hidden depths. The word hung in the air, alien and distant, a relic that could never contain the electric tension surging between us. The garage lingered in my mind, a vivid tableau of tension as he tensed beneath my touch, his breath hitching as he whispered my name, each syllable a haunting echo in the stillness. A relentless specter loomed over me, a perilous blend of guilt and desire that clung to my very soul, refusing to let go. The bathroom door creaked open, the sound slicing through my thoughts like a knife. My breath caught in my throat as Jameson entered the hall, a towel hanging low on his hips, his wet skin shimmering in the dim light. Water droplets clung to his chest, shimmering in the lantern's glow as he shifted, each movement a dance of light and shadow. He was a whirlwind of sharp edges and untamed energy, his dark hair cascading into his eyes, his presence so commanding that it rendered clear thought an impossible feat. He stood still, his eyes widening as they met mine, an electric tension crackling in the air between us. In that fleeting moment, we stood frozen, the atmosphere crackling with an electric tension that held us captive. His eyes were deep and probing, and I sensed that he could pierce through my very soul, beyond the barriers I had constructed, beyond the justifications I had clung to. "Tell me to stop," he said, his voice a low growl, rough and desperate as if he were clinging to the last shred of restraint he had left. I did not. In that moment, I reached for him, my fingers weaving through his damp hair as I drew him into a passionate kiss. Our lips collided with a force that left me breathless, the world around us fading into nothingness. His hands slipped beneath my shirt, warmth radiating from his palms as they cupped me, igniting a surge of electricity that coursed through my veins. My fingers dug into his shoulders, nails grazing his skin, a silent plea for more as I clung to him, consumed by desire. I had convinced myself that this was a mistake, that it was impossible, that it was forbidden, yet in that fleeting instant, all those thoughts faded into oblivion. Nothing else held significance. It was the way he ignited a fire within me, making me feel vibrant, desired, and essential. The towel slipped from my grasp, landing on the floor, abandoned as his hands found their way to my waist, pushing my shorts aside with a fervor that stole my breath away. His touch ignited a fire within me, fingers dancing over my skin with an urgency that left me breathless, my knees trembling. My hands roamed over the sculpted contours of his body, driven by an insatiable desire that surged through me like a tidal wave. "Jameson," I gasped, his name escaping my lips like a breathless plea. He answered with a low growl, his lips crashing against mine once more in a kiss that sent waves of dizziness coursing through me. We were a chaotic intertwining of bodies, our frantic touches igniting sparks, breaths colliding in the thick, sultry atmosphere. The air was thick with our breathless whispers, a visceral closeness shattering the barriers that had once defined us, the stepmother-stepson divide that had seemed unyielding only days before. Jameson's lips departed from mine, cascading down my neck with a fervor that ignited a shiver through my entire being. His hands explored my body with a fierce urgency, as if he were determined to imprint every curve into his memory. My hands trembled, clutching his shoulders, his back, anything to ground myself as the world whirled in disorder around us. "Isabella!" He groaned, his voice raw with desire, and the way he uttered my name ignited the flames of passion that raged between us. My mind went blank, my breath caught in my throat as the heat of our bodies intertwined, drowning out all thoughts except for him. His hands roamed freely, each caress igniting a fire within me, sending electric sparks coursing through my veins. My fingers wove through his hair, drawing him nearer as our kisses deepened, fueled by a rising tide of desperation and urgency. The coolness of the wall pressed against my overheated skin, yet it faded into the background, eclipsed by the intensity of my focus on Jameson and the electric sensations he stirred within me. His hands glided beneath my shirt, lifting the fabric up and away from my body. I surrendered to the moment, feeling the cool air caress my skin, a brief, refreshing contrast before his warmth enveloped me once more. Our touches became desperate, the longing between us too powerful to be restrained. His hands roamed over every inch of my skin, igniting trails of fire with each caress, while my fingers traced the contours of his body, imprinting the sensation deep within me. The intimacy surged, raw and primal, as the boundary between us vanished, engulfed in a haze of sweat and breathless gasps that I could not contain. His hands roamed with a fervor that ignited every nerve, exploring the curves of my body with a devotion that unraveled me completely. The warmth of his body pressed against mine ignited a fire within me, his breath catching in a tantalizing gasp as my fingers brushed his skin. In that moment, the universe faded away, leaving only the two of us, enveloped in the soft glow of flickering candlelight that painted our surroundings with shadows that swirled and twirled in a mesmerizing dance. The air hung heavy with the intoxicating scent of rain mingling with the subtle hint of sweat, and each touch, each fleeting brush of skin against skin ignited a thrilling rush that coursed through my veins. His lips met mine, the kiss intense and probing, and I surrendered to him as the burden of everything we had been restraining surged over us like a powerful tide. As he finally shifted, each movement was slow and deliberate, a rhythm that stole my breath away. My fingers wove through his hair, gripping tightly as I lost myself in him, whipping tightly as I lost myself in him. The intensity surged through me, each touch and movement drawing me deeper into an uncharted realm, something I couldn't quite define. The storm outside loomed ominously, yet within the confines of the house we found ourselves ensnared in a whirlwind of emotions, each moment leaving us gasping and quaking with intensity. Later, as we lay entwined in the shadows, the gravity of our actions pressed down upon me. The boundary that once defined us had been shattered, leaving me uncertain if retreat was even an option anymore. The storm raged beyond, but the true tempest had already taken hold within me, within us, and there was no way to flee its grasp now. A tempest raged within me, a fierce battle between guilt and desire, each vying for dominance as I grappled with the aftermath of what had transpired. Bernardo, beneath the turmoil, a singular truth lay waiting to be acknowledged. It was a moment of sheer recklessness, teetering on the edge of danger, and there was no turning back now. The tempest raging outside could eventually fade, but the turmoil brewing within me, within us, was only just starting to unfold. As darkness enveloped the night, the blackout lingered, transforming the house into a stifling cocoon of heat and shadows. The air clung to my skin, heavy and stagnant, intensifying the restless energy that surged within me. I sank into the living room couch, a solitary candle flickering on the coffee table, its dim light dancing in weaving shadows that played across the walls. My hands quivered with anticipation, my mind a chaotic whirlwind as I lingered in the silence. As he stepped into the room, silence enveloped him, his very essence commanding the atmosphere around him. Without needing to glance upward, I felt him there. My body responded instinctively, a thrilling shiver of anticipation coursing through me. He halted, his dark eyes locking onto mine, their intensity impossible to ignore. In that fleeting moment, we stood frozen, the air thick with an unyielding silence that crackled with unvoiced tension. Then he knelt between my thighs, his hands warm and purposeful as they slowly parted me. The intensity of his touch ignited a fire within me, my breath hitching as the warmth of his gaze enveloped me. He lifted his gaze, his eyes probing into mine, and I nodded, my voice a mere breath, kindly. The word lingered in the air, a delicate thread of permission, and he seized the moment without a second thought. His lips sought mine, a tantalizing dance that began with a measured, deliberate pace. The damp warmth of his body ignited a surge of electricity within me, my hips rising instinctively, craving more of his touch. My fingers wove through his hair, pulling him nearer as he devoted himself to me with an intensity that stole my breath away. The pulse quickened, each tick of the clock drawing me nearer to the brink. Sweat clung to my skin, the stifling heat of the room and the fervor of his touch clouding my thoughts, leaving me in a haze of confusion and desire. My body ignited with a raw urgency, each nerve ending ablaze with sensation as he propelled me to new heights. A brief flicker of hesitation danced in my mind, a whisper of doubt that threatened to linger, but it vanished almost as quickly as it appeared, swept away by the overwhelming tide of pleasure that engulfed me. My fingers wove tightly into his hair, the world around me fading as I hovered on the edge of MDMA. Was it not a profound sense of wrongness that enveloped everything? What we were engaging in was shrouded in secrecy and danger. It honed the spiral, infusing a perilous sharpness into the MDMA that enveloped me. It was a daring gamble. It was a mistake, a misstep that echoed in the shadows of the night. Bernardo, in that fleeting instant, nothing else mattered to me. Wait for all. This was my desire, my longing. Yearned for him with a desperation that eclipsed all else. As I reached the end, a cry erupted from my lips, shattering the silence of the room, my body quaking with the raw power of the moment. He pressed on, relentless and unwavering. Until I was left gasping for breath, my body utterly spent and boneless. He withdrew gradually, his gaze deep and inscrutable. In that suspended moment, silence enveloped us, broken only by the erratic cadence of my breath and the soft flickering whisper of the candle's flame. The burden of our actions loomed large, an oppressive shroud of guilt and longing that clung to me, refusing to be cast aside. The line that had once defined us, a boundary so steadfast, had vanished, shattered by the overwhelming force of our bond. He reached for me, his hand grazing my cheek, and I leaned into his touch, my body still vibrating with the remnants of MDMA. His fingers glided down my neck, a caress that was both gentle and commanding. Once more, I sensed the tension between us winding tighter, a palpable force in the air. The oppressive heat of the blackout clung to the air, enveloping the house in a stifling silence that felt almost alive. The air hung thick, suffocating, as if it bore the weight of untold secrets. A solitary candle flickered on the kitchen counter, its dim light stretching shadows that danced ominously across the walls, whispering tales of the unknown. I perched at the table, a half-empty glass of wine cradled in my hand, the warm liquid offering little solace to the restless energy surging within me. As he slipped into the kitchen, a palpable tension hung in the air, his presence commanding the room with an unspoken intensity. The unmistakable presence drew me in, and I felt no need to glance upward. I already knew it was him. The way my body responded, a thrilling shiver of anticipation coursing through me, was more than enough. With a bottle of wine clutched in one hand, he ran his fingers through his damp hair, leaning against the counter as if the weight of the world rested upon him. "I thought you might crave something more," he murmured, his voice gravely as he filled his glass. I nodded, my voice lost in the depths of his gaze, as he settled into the seat across from me, his dark eyes piercing through the silence, holding me captive. The flickering candlelight wove a tapestry of shadows across his face, accentuating the sharp angles and the subtle glisten of sweat that clung to his skin. His shirt clung to him like a second skin, accentuating the chiseled contours of his chest. I willed myself to look away, my grip on the glass tightening as a rush of heat coursed through me. We sat in silence, the air thickening with an unspoken tension that wrapped around us, growing heavier with each fleeting second. The wine clung to warmth, its bitterness barely a whisper against the intensity of his gaze, which held me captive in that moment. "You're quiet," he said, finally shattering the stillness that hung between them. I shrugged, my voice a mere breath, barely breaking the silence that enveloped us, only lost in thought. He leaned in closer, his elbows pressing against the table. His gaze locked onto mine with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "What is it about?" In that moment of uncertainty, my mind swirled with a chaotic blend of guilt and longing, each feeling pulling me in opposing directions. Our story unfolds here. Once upon a time, his gaze remained steady, an enigma etched on his face. What happens next? I lifted the glass to my lips, the rich liquid swirling within, its warmth coursing through me like a fleeting embrace, yet failing to quell the storm of anxiety that churned inside. "It is intricate," he chuckled, a deep, resonant sound that echoed in the silence, sending a thrilling shiver down my spine. "Complicated is just the beginning of the story." I gazed up at him, his dark eyes shimmering with a blend of amusement and an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine, leaving me breathless. "We can stop," he murmured, his voice taking on a weighty seriousness. "If you dare to." I shook my head, the impulse taking over before reason could catch up. "I can't bear the thought of stopping." His gaze melted with warmth, and he leaned forward, his fingers grazing my own in a fleeting electric touch. The contact surged like a bolt of lightning, igniting a spark that sent shivers down my spine as the tension between us wound ever tighter. "Good," he whispered, his voice thick with desire. He rose slowly, each movement purposeful, and my heart raced with a thrilling anticipation. With a swift motion, he seized the glass from my grasp, casting it aside as he drew me to my feet. His hands radiated warmth against my skin, a blend of tenderness and possessiveness, as he led me to the precipice of the table. "Just say the word if you want me to stop," he murmured, his breath warm and tantalizing against my ear. I nodded, words escaping me, as he leaned in, his lips grazing mine in a kiss that was tender and held a haunting sweetness. His hands glided over my body, tracing every curve with a reverence that stole my breath away. The air crackled with intensity, each moment stretching into an agonizing eternity as the heat between us surged, the tension thickening like a storm ready to unleash its fury. My fingers wove through his hair, drawing him nearer as the kiss intensified, our bodies melding together in a way that clouded my thoughts entirely. At last, he hoisted me up into the air. The cool surface of the table clashed violently with the heat radiating from my skin. His touch became fervent, his hands slipping beneath my shirt as he roamed my body with a desire that sent shivers through me. The very essence of our actions felt wrong. Forbidden thrill that surged through me, amplifying the intensity and infusing a perilous edge into the pleasure that enveloped my being. It was a wild gamble, a choice steeped in folly. Bernardo, in that fleeting instant, I felt nothing. This was my desire. She craved him, a longing so intense it eclipsed all else. Later, as we lay entwined in the soft shadows of the kitchen, the gravity of our actions enveloped me like a thick fog. The line that separated us, once a formidable barrier, had vanished, shattered by the raw power of our bond. The storm outside loomed ominously, yet within the confines of the house, we found ourselves ensnared in a whirlwind of our own creation, a force that left us gasping and quaking. The very essence of our actions felt so wrong, so forbidden, that it ignited a fire within us, ensnaring us in a dizzying spiral from which I found myself unwilling to break free. So, the storm raged beyond the horizon, but the true disordre had already taken root within the depths of my being. Within us, a force surged and retreat was no longer an option. As dawn broke, the power surged back, awakening the house with a vibrant hum of appliances and the gentle flicker of lights igniting one by one. As I stood at the kitchen sink, my robe clinging to me like a second skin, I gazed out at the rain-drenched yard, each droplet a whisper of secrets untold. The storm had unleashed its fury overnight, transforming the landscape into a shimmering spectacle. The ground sparkled under the soft light, and the air was crisp and invigorating, as if the entire world had been reborn in a cleansing deluge. Bernardo, within me, the burden of what had transpired between us clung tightly, an unyielding second skin that refused to be shed. The house pulsed with a new energy, its walls closing in, wrapping around like a warm embrace, creating an atmosphere that was both cozy and suffocating. The storm raged on, tearing down the barriers I had so carefully constructed, leaving me vulnerable and bare. I could still sense the lingering trace of his fingers on my skin, the heat of his breath whispering against my neck. That memory coursed through me, igniting a shiver that had nothing to do with the chill of the morning air. The sound reached me first, a soft shuffle of bare feet gliding over the hardwood floor, followed by the subtle creak of the door as it opened, heralding his arrival. Jameson stepped into the kitchen, his hair tousled from sleep, his dark eyes flickering away from mine the moment they locked. His movements were charged with tension, each step laced with a hesitation that echoed my own uncertainty. In that fleeting moment, silence enveloped us, thick and palpable. The coffee maker sputtered to life behind me, releasing a rich, bitter aroma that enveloped the room, yet neither of us dared to reach for a cup. I stood there, fingers clutching the cold edge of the sink, my thoughts a whirlwind of unspoken questions swirling in the depths of my mind. The silence hung heavy in the air, a palpable tension that seemed to pulse with unspoken words, until he shattered it with his voice. "Morning," he murmured, his voice gravelly, barely escaping his lips. I nodded, my eyes locked onto the shadows lurking behind me, and a shiver ran down my spine as I sensed his presence before his hand lightly grazed my arm. The touch was hesitant, barely brushing against my skin, yet it ignited a surge of electricity that coursed through my veins. I turned to face him, my heart racing wildly, and in that charged silence, the world around us faded away. The air crackled with tension, the remnants of last night hanging over us like a storm cloud, heavy and unyielding, waiting for the moment to unleash its fury. His eyes locked onto mine, deep and inscrutable, igniting a primal urge within me to avert my gaze, to seek refuge in the comforting embrace of silence. Bernardo, I chose not to. Our eyes locked, and my breath hitched as he drew nearer, his hand resting softly on my arm. "We can't ignore what just transpired," I said at last, my voice a whisper yet resolute. He nodded, his eyes locking onto mine, and in that moment, there was an intensity in his gaze that stole my breath away. "I refuse to wear a mask," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. His words lingered in the air, thick with unspoken tension, and for a heartbeat, I found myself at a loss for how to reply. The coffee maker beeped, its sharp sound slicing through the heavy silence of the room, yet neither of us dared to stir. The moment hung in the air, a fragile eternity, as if we were ensconced in a bubble, impervious to the encroaching disorder of the outside world. He moved in, his hand reaching for mine, fingers weaving together in a hold that was both strong and gentle. His touch radiated warmth, anchoring me in the moment. For a fleeting instant, the burden of our past actions and the unspoken words hung between us seemed to lift, if only slightly. We left it unnamed, an enigma wrapped in emotions, love, regret, or perhaps something altogether different. There was no need for it. The quiet connection between us pulsed with an unspoken intensity, a delicate thread of understanding that bound us in the stillness, weaving a tapestry of shared moments that thrummed with unvoiced emotions. My fingers curled tightly around his, and he responded with a firm squeeze, his thumb gliding over my knuckles in a way that felt both reassuring and fiercely protective. What unfolds next? I finally mustered the courage to speak, my voice trembling and barely rising above a whisper. He hesitated, his eyes locked onto mine, and for a fleeting moment, I feared he might retreat into the shadows. Instead, he leaned in closer, his forehead pressing against mine, his breath a warm whisper against my skin. I don't know, he admitted, his voice thick with raw emotion, but I can't bear the thought of losing you. His words struck me with the force of a blow, their weight sinking deep into my core. I longed to assure him that he wouldn't be alone, that we would navigate this storm side by side, but the words clung to my throat, refusing to break free. He leaned back just enough to gaze into my eyes, his hand cradling my cheek, his thumb gliding softly over my skin. "I need you," he whispered, his voice trembling with raw sincerity. As I shut my eyes, surrendering to his caress, the disorder of the world around us faded into nothingness. It was just him and us, bound by a delicate thread that intertwined our fates. As I slowly opened my eyes, he remained, his intense gaze fixed on mine, igniting a flicker of an unnameable feeling deep within me. Perhaps it was the flicker of hope or the shadow of fear, but it was powerful enough to shatter the stillness that enveloped them. "Oh, figure it out," I whispered, my voice unwavering, even as disorder raged within me. He nodded, his hand slipping from mine as he stepped back, yet the warmth of his touch lingered, a silent promise or a question that hung in the air. One I wasn't certain I could answer. The coffee lingered on the counter, untouched, steam swirling in delicate tendrils, yet neither of us dared to reach for it. Instead, we remained frozen in place, the burden of our unvoiced thoughts pressing down on us like a thick fog. The future loomed before us, an unwritten tale, a blank page eager for ink. Bernardo, the heavy burden of our past selves and the tantalizing possibilities of who we could still become pressed down on us, impossible to shake off. As the morning sunlight streamed through the window, bathing the room in a warm golden hue, I sensed the awakening of something extraordinary. It transcended guilt and desire, evolving into a force that gripped my very soul, a darkness that terrified me more than anything I'd ever known. "I should go," he murmured, uncertainty lacing his words. I nodded, my voice trapped in my throat, and I watched him turn away, his figure slowly fading as he stepped out of the kitchen. The sound of his footsteps reverberated through the desolate hallway, and an oppressive silence enveloped me, heavy with the ache of his absence. As I stood there, gazing out at the rain-drenched yard, a revelation struck me with the force of a thunderclap. The storm had subsided, yet the true disorder was just starting to brew within me, within us, and there was no way to evade it any longer. The initial misstep had transformed my yearnings, our destiny a blank page yet burdened with the gravity of who we were destined to be. As the house thrummed with energy, a palpable tension filled the air, and I realized there was one undeniable truth that gripped my heart. This was far from the end. The dawn of something extraordinary had just begun. The hours that ensued slipped into a haze, each moment intertwining with the next in a dizzying dance of uncertainty. I drifted through the house, my mind a chaotic whirlwind of emotions that eluded my grasp. Guilt, desire, and fear intertwined in a tumultuous dance, each emotion battling fiercely for control. Bernardo, beneath the surface, a subtle undercurrent stirred, an elusive whisper of something akin to hope, though I hesitated to give it a name just yet. The living room enveloped me, a haunting reminder of where it had all started. The storm had etched its presence into the very fabric of the landscape. The delicate aroma of rain still hung in the air, mingling with a newfound chill that invigorated the senses. I sank into the couch, my fingers gliding over the edge of the cushion where we had shared our last moments together, the warmth of his touch lingering in my memory like a haunting echo. The weight of it all bore down on me, the enormity of our actions and their implications wrapping around me like a suffocating shroud. But there was no turning back now. The line had been crossed, the boundary shattered, and the weight of what had transpired could never be undone. The echo of footsteps reverberated through the hallway, sending a jolt through my heart. He stood in the doorway, his face a mask of mystery, and for a heartbeat, silence enveloped us both. "I believed you were gone," I murmured at last, my voice a fragile breath in the silence. He shook his head, his gaze locking onto mine with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. I found myself unable to do it. His words pierced the air, sending a shiver racing down my spine, while the intensity of his gaze enveloped me, heavy and palpable as if it were a tangible force. He entered the room, each step measured and purposeful, before settling beside me, his presence enveloping me in warmth and stability. The air was thick with unspoken words, yet the silence wrapped around us like an old, cherished blanket, warm and reassuring in its familiarity. His hand sought mine, fingers weaving together in a hold that was both resolute and gentle. In that fleeting moment, the burden of all we had experienced and the unspoken words hung between us seemed to ease, if only slightly. The future loomed before us, an unwritten saga, a blank page eager for ink. Bernardo, the heavy shadows of our past and the tantalizing possibilities of who we could still become pressed down upon us, impossible to shake off. As the sunlight streamed through the windows, bathing the room in a warm, golden hue, I sensed the awakening of something profound and transformative. It transcended mere guilt or desire. It was a profound force, an unsettling truth that gripped me tighter than any fear I had ever known. As I sat there, his hand clasped in mine, a revelation began to dawn on me. This was not the conclusion. The dawn of something extraordinary had just begun.